Hello, everybody. What a great day it is. Here we are, Rick, R&R.
Remnant Revealed.
Remnant Revealed. Here we're hit that bell, subscribe, shoot us a thumbs up.
Yeah, that really makes a difference. And
that's all the things I'm supposed to say, right?
Yeah.
Hit the bell, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Yeah.
But it does make a difference. It helps.
Sure.
And definitely helps when people throw comments down there.
Absolutely, and we do our best to answer every comment.
Yeah.
And I think we've had some people request Dr. Barkley's book on how not to be shipwrecked.
Yep, we just heard another request yesterday, so that's really good. And
it's awesome.
Get those out to folks.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I was, have you ever driven, I was just thinking this when we were getting ready, have you ever driven so long that your legs get numb?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just pulled it like a 13 and a half hour
that'll
drive one way, both
each way.
Each way.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Whew.
Yeah, I've done that one.
I am a great proponent of stopping halfway, getting a hotel room, driving the rest of the way. Some physical reasons, but those who were with me, though, wanted to press through so that you could get, we were going on vacation.
So well, that's a good reason to drive a long ways.
There is no good reason to drive a long ways. There's a good reason to fly a long ways.
Yeah.
No good reason to drive a long ways. Unless it's an emergency, I get that. But
so 13 hours straight, huh?
Yeah.
You remember not too long ago, I mean, it's not like a funny thing, but I drove 13 hours, arrived safely, gratefully.
Yeah.
And then within just a matter of moments, learned of an officer that was critically injured.
Turned around
back home and got in a car and drove 13 hours straight back,
And all I have to say about that is,
no, that was a little rough.
Yeah.
Just for me, more than anything, being tired, but it's physically exhausting. Not just sitting there, but the mental,
trying to keep yourself
staying focused and everything else, and staying safe. But it's a lot like our profession and our job and what we do.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking. I got home. I'm always thinking about our coppers, but there are guys and gals that have to sit in their car.
Oh yeah,
and drive around.
Yeah,
for sometimes 12, sometimes 16 hours.
Yeah. You think many of our officers work 12-hour shifts now, and so a lot of that is spent in a car, and that's day after day.
By the way, with a 40-pound,
you got
on average
body armor,
utility belt,
all your other gear.
Oh my goodness gracious, man!
Yeah, and you see it because it takes its effect on the backs of our officers. Our officers are notorious for back issues, back problems, all those other things. A lot of agencies now are moving to I forget the actual term, but basically like a suspender system that helps relieve that weight off the hips of the officers with their duty belt and whatnot.
Because a lot of retired officers wind up having to have hip replacements.
Oh yeah, and then spinal issues and everything else. So
if you think about having something pressing, like when you sit down, you've got your duty belt with things hanging off of it at your hip joint.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about that.
They don't think about that.
Yeah, doesn't get talked about much.
So when you shut the door jamb, the door, the armrest that's there to be a comfort and a support to most everybody else,
it's pushing in on it.
Jams your hips into your radio control box. And then you've got this, you got to wear your safety belt. You got to wear your seat belt.
Yeah.
Back in the day, back years ago, you didn't wear your seat belt as much as you're required to now, which it's a good thing to do that. But most of the time, because it was just added more pressure to your hip. And then you got to jump out of that car for an emergency, run to a car that's been in an accident, or you got you got somebody that's in trouble, or you got an officer down or situation. and you got to put those hips and those legs in action quick.
Yeah. But key point, wear your seatbelt.
Wear your seatbelt.
Yeah. Wear your seatbelt, wear your body armor.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the toll that takes on the human body.
That's right. Yeah.
You can't practice for that. It's there, right?
Right.
So it's good. So at every gas station,
that, huh?
oh my goodness gracious. At every gas station, you get out and you're trying to stretch your legs out, but you get out like you're 110 years old, creaking your leg out like some dinosaur, T-Rex trying to take a step. Man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but it's another example of a lot of the long-term effects on our officers from long-term exposure.
Yeah.
So to the physical demands on the body, carrying all that weight all the time on the hips, the backs, the knees, the feet, all that kind of stuff. A lot of what the general public doesn't usually think about.
Right.
Or you think that right? And I always tell somebody, just get on your scales at home and pick up luggage or something else that's 40 pounds and hold that with you to see 40 pounds more on the scales, and then think about carrying that around for your entire work day.
For 35 years.
That's right.
So don't forget that.
That's right. But here's the other thing, the long-term exposure to stress, the internal component, you see manifests itself with our officers, especially with heart issues. Yeah. So the number one killer of law enforcement officers outside of line of duty, tragedies,
right?
And now outside of COVID is heart disease. For firefighters, it's cancer.
Right.
For law enforcement officers, it's heart disease.
I'd probably say for firefighters, you're breathing in a whole lot of stuff.
That's right.
Every time you go to a fire. Without a
and the
doubt.
same thing, you've got the discussions of old school where firefighters didn't wear their APR systems and all that, and how much of a push there's been over the last couple of decades of really making sure even on low-level suppression kind of details and whatnot, you're still always wearing that because, those folks are breathing in all kinds of contaminants and toxins and carcinogens and everything else.
And I think people don't realize that without certain organizations for police departments and for firemen that watch over and make sure that they have the equipment they need, would be very easy for communities or cities to say, oh, that stuff's... It's like when we did the trauma kits, right? Yeah. We were told, well, they don't need all that. However, when we started doing the research, we found that on average, for a person who gets put in prison for killing an officer, it's about $98,000 a year that taxpayers pay for their upkeep, their food, to keep them on death row or in prison or housing. That's a year. On average, it takes sometimes 5 to 15 years for the full process of that legal case to finish out.
Right.
And then if they get a sentence of many years, you're still the one paying, the taxpayer's still the one. And then we realized that we could do a trauma kit that would save that officer's life for $100.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
save
the life.
And save the life, right?
Yeah.
For $100.
But to your point, there are organizations, and that's why they exist, is to advocate for our public safety personnel. Because this is what I always tell people. Every officer, we just said, wear your body armor.
Right.
And I always like to point out, so most agencies provide the body armor for their employees. I always say, do you think they do that because they want to? Do you think they provide that because, it's the right thing to do? Do you think that they provide it?
The comptroller in the city, the budget.
Do you think they provide it because they said, hey, we have officers that are dying and they're working for us? No. Like even in our state and many other states, we had to actually get a law passed that requires it. And by the way, the bid still goes to the lowest. The contract still goes to the lowest
bidder.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So it may not be the most quality product at times.
But that's why you have organizations that fight for
That's
that
right.
and stand the line for that. So it's really important that we have that. And, but here again, we're talking about entities that stand the line for those physical safety needs. Now we're doing the emotional wellness needs for the most part. And what we are talking about is trying to put on that spiritual body armor.
That's right.
For our officers, our firefighters, our military veterans and personnel that are actively serving or now retired.
Here's another thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about driving 13 hours, trying to get my legs to move once I stepped out to fill up the truck, which is another traumatic moment, at $5 plus a gallon, but or $4 plus a gallon at different places. But I also thought about, while that officer's sitting in their car driving for 8, 12, 16 hours, having to be in that car, they can't do what the average citizen does and read a book, listen to a story. They have to have, they got to have their head on a swivel.
Yeah.
The whole time they're working.
That's what we just talked about, that focus, that attention.
Yeah. You cannot let your attention get diverted.
No, it's
even if you
exhausting.
think you pull into a place where you're alone, they have to constantly be aware of what's around them. Because unfortunately, we have people, especially today, that have a desire to ambush them.
So that's what I was pulling out here. I wanted to look that up. You're talking about that. These are the latest statistics that we just got from the National Fraternal Order of Police. So this is for the first 4 months of the year, January 1st through May 1st, so the end of April. We have had 123 officers shot, 19 of which have been killed by gunfire. And here's this, to your point. 39 law enforcement officers were shot in 25 separate ambush-style attacks.
Say that again. I want everybody to listen that's watching. Say that again.
39 law enforcement officers were shot in 25 separate ambush-style attacks, which means you had ambush-style attacks where more than one officer was shot on several of those incidents.
Right.
The other thing is that's a 38% increase in number of officers shot in the line of duty from the same time period in 2020. So that's a 2-year span.
So just think about this. I think about this as part of the community, and I really try to help the community think about this too, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're watching this today, think about this in your job. Okay, you're a plumber. Mm-hmm. How many times have you crawled out from under a house after sweating a pipe on, just waiting for somebody to be standing around the corner of the house to shoot you or stab you? Wait a minute. Okay, how about a doctor? How many rooms of the hospital do you go through the door and you're just on edge waiting for somebody behind that door to be prepared to kill you when you walk in there?
Right.
How many, and the list goes on, how many attorneys, walk into their office or go to their job every day and they're so on edge or have hypervigilance because they've got to be aware of their circumstances every moment of every day because people mean them harm.
But you think about that, many attorneys and elected leaders and things such as that, they usually are operating in an arena where people have already been screened for weapons. There's security, there's armed guards around the building and in the building and all those other things, so that they don't have to think or worry about that. To your point, I think, is this is the one profession where you do. Nothing against our firefighters, but unfortunately, even more and more, we're starting to see they are starting to have to worry about that while they're on scene fighting a fire. We now have firefighters that were responding with ballistic helmets and rifle plates on certain situations, but even still, yet again, on many
who clears those scenes before they.
That's
go
what I was
in.
going to say. On many runs, they're still going to stand by till that scene has been rendered safe by the law enforcement officer.
That's right. Now people say, "Yeah, but I mean, you chose to do that. It's your well, no, you're called to do that job. There's a difference here."
Well, and many critics will say, "Hey, yeah, but there's other jobs that are just as dangerous. Loggers, I think, convenience store clerks."
Could you just say loggers again?
Well,
loggers.
So here's the point. Many of those other professions, they don't have people actively trying to kill them. Convenience store clerks, oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Loggers and construction people, road workers, all those other things. Many of those are tragic accidents that occur,
Sure.
work-related
and they do
accidents.
happen.
Absolutely. But people aren't actually setting out with intent in their heart to take their life.
I think you made the comment, how many trees are hunting you down in the forest.
Well, that's right.
And you're cutting them down.
Yeah.
How many trees are trying to kill you?
Yeah, that's right.
No,
So
that's right.
it's definitely something that we continue to be confronted with.
Sure.
And what the officers struggle with is we're seeing it. I get a lot of questions now about the role of morale with officers.
Right.
Well, morale's at an all-time low. Why? Well, because so everybody really, in a lot of respects, has turned their backs on them. Now, a lot of folks in the community get offended by that because they'll say individually, no, I support law enforcement officers. Yeah, but we don't hear you. We don't know that you're there. And that's why it's so important that this quote-unquote silent majority starts speaking up.
Becomes a loud, that's
right. If they truly are a majority. And officers now are not so sure that there is a majority out there that support them until they need them.
That's right.
Yeah. And so that's
even the criminal will call 911.
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness, how many times have we had 911 calls because somebody stole my drug money? Even criminals will call 911 when they're in an emergency situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that really can attack the psyche of any individual, let alone the spirit of the officer.
That's right.
And then you're left with this question: how do you keep your resolve?
So what do you do? That's right. Now, I'm glad you asked that because I have a great scripture today, and I hope you can let me share it. You're going to let me share it, aren't you?
Sure.
Okay. I was just making sure. We have to make sure of these things because he picks on me all the time every day.
Where are we
we're in 1 Samuel.
Okay.
Chapter
that's going to be
30.
one that many people might not have heard.
Yeah, that's back in the Old Testament.
Old Testament. Which, by the way, is awesome.
Oh, it is awesome, man. There's lots of powerful stories. And by the way, the King David, I've been to his grave. He's a real guy. These are real stories. These are not fake. I've been to the brook where he picked up his 5 smooth stones when he defeated Goliath. A lot of people have heard of the story about David and Goliath. That story's
a fairy
used.
tale.
Yeah, it's not a fairy tale. It's real. I have a stone from there. I mean, it's the valleys, the geological area, everything is geographically correct. It's all there to go see if you want to go see it. Anyway, he's in a town called Ziklag, Ziklag. And he has a band of men, his army, with him. And they've been out doing warfare. They've been in the middle of warfare and patrolling. So as officers would go out
on a mission.
Yep, out on a mission. While they're gone on a patrol, another military group comes in, wipes out the town, doesn't kill anybody, takes all the women and children, all the elderly, all the goods, all their houseware, took their frying pans, took their nice crystal glasses. They grabbed everything and booked it, left. So all these men, all these police officers, all these military, they get back. Everything's gone. Now they're exhausted. So be like an officer coming home after working, a full week in an emergency situation. I always think about our riots downtown, all the severe issues that we saw, 24-hour wild pandemonium, and they get home, they're exhausted, wiped out. They've been dealing with stuff all day long, and they get home, and all their wife and children, their husband and children, it's all gone. Their TV's gone. Brand new 50-inch TV they just bought. It's all gone. Stereo equipment's gone. Their bicycles are gone. All their stuff is gone. Jewelry boxes are gone. Everything's gone. Now, how would you feel if you came back and everybody you love and everything you own is gone. I mean, they left nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Even food was very much a part of their system at that day, to take everything, then burn or set fire to everything that was there structure-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys show up, and they got nothing. And now they've been out doing warfare on behalf of their community, their families, keeping everybody safe. And all their brothers are standing with them. And the Bible says very clearly that they were so distressed. Let me read this to you. So David and his men come to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire. Their wives, their sons, their daughters were all taken captive. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. I remember some men and women officers just saying to me, I'm so exhausted. I can't even feel myself anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm wiped out, man. This is the stress of all this, and this is massive. And they're so distraught that they cry till have you ever cried till there's just nothing left? There's no tears left.
Well, we just talked about recently tragedies we've seen where there just are no words that you can speak.
You look in that person's, I've been on many calls where you're trying to help and comfort somebody who's been in a severe, tragic situation. And literally their face just has no reaction because they can't, first of all, they can't wrap their mind around what's happened. It's so massive. Mm-hmm. They just have this blank stare in their eyes and in their face.
Disillusionment.
Total disillusionment. Just, they can't, it's like it's not real. Mm-hmm. If you talk to them later, most of the time, people will tell you, it's like I was in a movie or a dream and I couldn't wake up, and there's no way that could be real. There's no way that could happen to me. There's no way that could happen to my loved one. There's no way that's real, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen that many times where somebody's wept and wept and wept, and you're dealing with them over a period of time until they just, you know, they're not done grieving, but they just can't cry anymore. And they just look at you and say, it's not that I don't care. I just can't, I can't, my body just won't cry anymore. Mm-hmm. That's a very low point. I think sometimes as a community, we can push or press those that are here to stand for us, to protect us, to really love us, to give their life for us, to the point where they're so distressed, they don't know what to do anymore.
Well, it's a basic,
stressed out.
Well, it's a basic concept, esprit de corps, right? Morale. Yeah. The spirit is what you're talking about. Esprit de corps, the spirit, right?
That's right.
Esprit. So when you exhaust that, when you squeeze every bit of that out, that's what's happening to our profession right now. And then we say, well, these women, these guys, they act like they don't care. No, you squeezed that out of them. You took that out of the equation. And what we've talked about this before, it's a reflection of the community. You're holding up a mirror to the community. Right. And when the officers are saying, when you don't care, citizenry, why are we supposed to care?
That's right.
And that's in a lot of ways, that's where we are in our nation.
And it's not just caring. I want to make this clear for the community. It's not just caring for the officer. It's really caring about what the officer stands for, which is law and order.
Yeah.
And when you quit caring about law and order, you're going to quit caring about the heart of that officer, because that's what they're called to do.
That's what they represent.
That's what they represent.
Yeah.
So in essence, those two things go hand in hand.
That's right.
When you start calling evil good and good evil, you're gonna include that officer, because that's what their life is about.
Right.
That's what they give their body. Talking about driving and what it does to the human body and all the things. They do that. They know that's going to be part of the job. They do that because they love the community and want to serve their fellow man. So here's David. He's got all these men that are literally sacrificing their life. And now they come back to nothing.
Right. Well, let me take it in a different direction. That really ties right back into it. You go and you do all that. You do what is right. And then you have an officer that then gets sued for doing their job and doing what's right. And you get a judgment that is against the officer. And they can lose everything that they've built up in their life.
When they're right.
When they're right.
And they've been proven right.
Correct.
I mean 100% proven, justified. It's just for them to be right.
That's right.
And yet people in the community say, we don't care.
That's right. So you want to talk about pressure?
We're just going to say you're wrong.
That's right. Because we don't like what you represent.
There you go.
That's right.
But they are also the same people that stand and shake their fist at God because they don't like him either.
And what he represents.
So, you know,
that's right.
So you're in good company. They hate God too. And if they say they don't and they love God, well, you can't because you're a God hater. Here they are. And David, who's been with them, fought with them, stood with them, they decide in their distress, this is how wicked this level of pressure, stress, and pain can become, as they decided to kill him. Because our human nature is what? We got to blame somebody.
It's exactly what's going on in our country.
Thank you.
And the officer is the one that... So, right, this is... the officer is the most visible representation of government. People are very dissatisfied with all the failures of policy and politicians in this country. And so they take it out on the most visible representation, which is the American law enforcement officer. So you got the American law enforcement officer, as we saw over the last 2 years, standing shoulder to shoulder with people who are in the streets protesting their government. The officers are saying, I'm going to risk my life and my physical well-being, my life, my spirit, to protect you so that you can do that. And then what does the crowd do? They turn on those officers and direct their complete ire and anger at them for what they represent.
And they represent the law, and you keep saying, if you don't like the law, go get it changed, but I have to enforce the law.
That's right. That's right.
Crazy.
So every officer can relate to this story.
I would think
David
so,
is experiencing,
because it's a pretty powerful example of what happens in this level of distress. Now, David was greatly distressed.
So let's tell people again where it's at so they can get
1 Samuel chapter 30.
Got it.
And look at verse 6. Now, just so you know, David's lost his wives too and his children. He's lost everything too. Verse 6, and David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him. Now here's why. Not because he did anything wrong, but because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David, now here's the key, encouraged himself in the Lord, his God. What do you do in a moment when the stress level and you know that people are attacking you unjustly? David's been fighting right along with him. David has incurred loss as well. Same loss, wives, children, possessions, everything. What do you do when you're in the mess and it's so deep that you know people that normally love you turn on you too?
Let me read you the translation that I have. It says, and David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in their soul.
That's right.
Now, this is the thing that I intrigues me about this. What you're saying here and what you're reading is, can an officer relate to a group turning on them and wanting to literally stone them? We've gone through officers having rocks frozen water bottles.
Thank you. It's the chief.
Literal stones thrown at them, right? And then in terms of that, because they were bitter in their soul. We've been dealing with any groups, any people that are bitter in their soul, right? And then what you just said is that, but then he strengthened himself. And how did he do that? That's the whole crux of this.
Yeah.
How did he have the endurance and then also find the encouragement to keep moving forward?
So did he say, you guys give me a break, I'm going to go to the gym?
No.
Did he say, hey, I know how to handle this, I'm going to CrossFit?
Yeah, no.
Did he say, hey, y'all leave me alone for a minute, I'm going to the range?
No.
I'm going to get my slingshot out. That was his gun of the day.
I'm going to go hit the corner bar.
I'm going to hit the corner. Did he say, bring me all the wine I can drink?
No.
Did he say, go get me a couple of other ladies? I know my wife's, they've been taken away, but there's some pretty girls that.
I'm heading to the casino.
No, didn't do that. What did he say? He said, I turned and encouraged myself in the Lord, and it's very clear, his God. So it's evident his relationship with God was intact in that moment.
That is pretty important what you just said. And I didn't even notice that. Strengthened himself in the Lord. Most people stop there. His God.
His God. That's right. So he already had developed a relationship with God. He was already the Lord of his life.
That's right.
So he could call him his. It could be written about him that he was in possession, so to speak, of a relationship with God.
So you can always have that foxhole conversion, right?
Sure.
You scream out to God in the middle of it. But what really helps is if you've already made God the Lord of your life, and then when you're in the middle of the mess, you can call out to him.
So how does encouragement come like that? Because, when
that's the question.
When God talked to Joshua, who again, here's another great general, another great man of war, another great man of battle, another man with a great warrior spirit. Here's a guy that could fight all day long and all night long and ask the Lord to hold the sun still so he could keep kicking butt and taking names. And God did.
Another great story.
And scientifically proven, we've still missing that time, and they still don't know why.
That's right.
But we have the record of why.
Let's talk about that sometime, because that's a good one.
That's a good one. So Joshua is told to be strong and of good courage, which means encouragement means you are being filled with courage, or you're being filled with a divine, deep understanding of purpose that makes you know why you're there, and you're not going to give up or quit or let.
Being reminded of why you do what you do.
Why you do what you do. So David encouraged himself in the Lord his God by first talking to him. Secondly, we know that he called the preacher of the day and said, hey, bring me the instruments in his day that revealed the voice of God, the Urim and Thummim. Those are
so he talked
the
to
stones
God,
that the priest would wear.
So he talked to God, and then he called the chaplain.
That's right. Talked to God, then called the chaplain.
This is a mighty warrior.
Powerful man.
Right.
It's recorded historically. King Saul killed his thousands. David killed his tens of thousands. He ain't no wuss, right? This is not no sissy little pansy
So when
man.
everything in his world gets turned upside down, first thing he does is encourage
Talks to
himself
God.
in the Lord, his God, by talk. When he says his God, that's a personal relationship. He starts talking to him, and then he calls the chaplain.
And then he calls the chaplain and says, hey, I really need to know. I need to know what God thinks about this. I need to talk to God. Would you come pray with me? Mm-hmm. And so the chaplain, Abiathar the priest, the chaplain, he comes and talks to David, gives David what he needs to do to ask his questions. And so David does that. This is a great story. I love this story. It's one of my favorites. And David said to Abiathar the chaplain, the priest, said, I pray you bring me your ephod, or the ephod, which was the garment of the priest, so that he can inquire of the Lord. And so he inquired at the Lord, saying, what do I do now? Do I pursue this truth? Do I go after them? In other words, what he said was, what do I do now? I'm looking at the people that want to kill me,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been fighting for them and with them,
Mm-hmm.
right alongside one of their brothers. I'm also looking at my house is empty. I've lost what they've lost too.
Right.
I think people forget officers lose. I'm thinking about officers who get wounded. Everybody acts like they just go back on the job, like their wounds heal super naturally. They're just, you get you. I'm thinking about an officer that, like the one that we have in our lives right now, who gets shot in the throat or whatever. He doesn't just automatically, hey, since it didn't kill him, he's just back on the job.
And that's what we talk about. No, they have to fight for their recovery.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I mean, fight for it.
Now, here's a good point. So how do they do that? How do they fight for their recovery? What I'm going to tell you is that if you're not grounded, if you don't already have that deep, abiding relationship with your Lord, your God, it's going to be very difficult to fight for your recovery.
Oh, yeah.
The way that you fight that battle is with God.
Because now here's the great thing about that. Because you're fighting on three fronts. I mean, that's a tough battle. If you can shrink that to where you're only fighting on two or one front,
right,
then of course the battle's much easier. Anybody that knows anything about fighting will tell you that's a fact.
If you're having to fight on two or three fronts, you've been triangulated.
So
very difficult.
Very difficult. So if you're battling physically, mentally, and spiritually,
right,
you're in deep, deep trouble.
Right.
If you can handle the spiritual and make sure you stay strong there and you don't let anything infiltrate your green zone of the spirit,
yep,
because you're walking with God.
If you've been playing offense on that front, you're not have to play defense.
Come on.
At the time
you're going to get
battle.
me preaching now.
I know.
No, they don't want me to preach, but
that's right.
I can't help it.
That's the key component, though.
And that key component always helps the mind and emotions.
Right.
It always brings strength to that area. Then you're only fighting on one front, and that's physical.
That's right.
Sometimes you're going to have moments where you're battling mentally because you may have a challenge, a physical challenge. I'm thinking of those who've maybe been hurt or paralyzed or lost a limb in the line of duty or things of that nature. I go back to one of our dear precious officers who tragically was shot in the head, and the battle he had to go through to get to where he is today. But when you handle that spiritual part first, you may battle a little bit in the emotional, mental realm, but you can always go back to the spirit, and your spirit encourages by the Holy Spirit, encourages your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So then you just have to deal with the fight you're dealing with on one front.
Right.
Not all three. All three, I think that's where we lose officers, when they're battling in all three realms. I think that is, just talking person, that's the highest level of danger of suicide in officers.
That's why I believe so much in what we're doing here. I just received word a day ago of another officer that took his life and, died from suicide. Yeah. And here again, I keep, and I actually got a call from an officer talking about it, and we talked about this very issue. Man, it might not have saved him, might not have prevented it, but I sure wish we would have saw what would have happened if he got a chance to just see some of the things that we're talking about. That's why I always say with this podcast, we just want to get it in front of as many hearts as possible. When we talked to Dr. Barclay, I love the phrase that he used, bow your heart. And I just think, a officer out there, a man, a woman out there that's serving their community, that's battling all these demons, that may be battling on these three fronts, that's gotten triangulated by the evil spirits in this world. And if they could just get this before their heart, bow their heart to it, and just hear it. Just hear us out.
Yeah.
And don't even hear us. Just hear the word and the resource that is here for you. There is a rescue boat here.
That's what we're trying to communicate.
That is right.
Is the rescue.
That is right.
I mean,
and I know why you're getting emotional, because we talk about this all the time. We lose another officer to suicide, and we're left thinking, man, did he or she ever get the chance just to hear somebody talk to him and let him know that there is hope, that there is hope here.
And you sense just knowing about suicide, knowing the what that does, how that plays out. Because of course, as a chaplain, and then I did some work with the national suicide committees. When you understand in a person's life what brings that about, and the depth of that loneliness, that you're all alone, or that nobody gets you, or that you have no other choice.
Yeah.
When you are looking at that and that is the only choice you see, knowing what that comes from, it makes me emotional, because it's such a painful place.
That is a true pit of despair.
It's a pit of despair. And your heart longs to say, we want you. We don't. There's an answer.
Right. There's a way out.
There's a way out.
And it's not that.
No, it's not that. And it's not just being religious.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't care for religion.
Right.
I care for a relationship.
Right. And when you think you got nobody else, you do have somebody.
You do, and you have the greatest somebody.
That's right.
And David cried out. I mean, he's so distraught, he can't cry anymore either.
He's in a pit of despair.
Oh, and he is facing his own people killing him.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's turned their back on him.
Totally.
Thinks where most people would say, I'm all alone, he knew he wasn't.
And just so you know, we realize you're a high D and you're a doer. You go out and get it done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Officers, high D person. That we're not trying to tell you you're going to sit around a campfire and sing Kumbaya and get a ukulele. That's not our deal. David didn't either.
There you go.
He sought God, his God.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, now what do I do?
There you go.
You've helped me see clearly, so my heart is better. But now what do I do? Do I pursue these guys? Do I go after that guy down the street around the corner? Do I chase this guy? Do I pull off? Do I stay in this car chase? Do I wait?
Yeah.
Do I back off? Is there something? What do you want me to do?
He didn't bend his knee to the evil spirit. He bent his knee to his God and cried out for help.
To the Holy Spirit. That's right.
That's it.
That's right. And when he did, so here's what he says.
So it's, shall I initiate a pursuit here, is what he's asking.
Yeah. Do I go after them? Shall I overtake them? So if I go after them, Lord, do you want me to go hands-on?
Yeah.
Do I grab them? Do I go hands-on? Do I cuff them? Do I take them down? What do you want me to do? And God didn't say, hey, dude, you're on your own. You made the mess now. You fix it. I can't help you with that. I mean, I'm God. I'm up here. You're down there.
Mm-mm.
You just kind of deal with what you got to. I mean, I
Key
helped
point,
you out.
He invited God into the situation.
First, he did. That's right.
And when we do that, he always shows up.
He always shows up.
That's right.
And it says, and he said.
He answered him.
Answered him. Oh, wait. That means he heard his questions.
So he answered him, meaning God answered
God
David.
answered David. Pursue. Yep. Lights and siren. Flip the switch, boys. Let's go. Pursue. For you shall surely overtake them. It's going to happen. And without fail, 100% success, you're going to recover all. Now, that's a powerful, powerful statement in the middle of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Does that not set a picture of hope? Instantly.
That's right.
Now, where you have hope, you can have faith. If you're hopeless, you can't see your way to believe.
Right.
When people get into deep trauma, and they lose hope, that's the most dangerous point of their life.
Yep.
Because these demon spirits
move
in and
Yep.
talk to you, and they mean you no good whatsoever.
So in military terms, what we talk about is when you've been ambushed, you've been triangulated, you're getting ambushed on all three sides here by the evil one. What do? Do you retreat? No, you advance the ambush.
That's right.
That's your only hope, but you don't do it alone, and that's the key component. Right. And we just talked about that, and we were talking about that where there's no more tears to cry. When there are no words, there is the word.
Yep.
And that's what I want our officers to hear. When you think there is no hope, there is no answers, nobody can help you.
Right.
Your coworkers can't help you. You can't even tell them what's going on because you're so deep into it. You can't talk to your family. They've all turned their back. They've walked away from you. And there are no words. There's the word.
There's the word.
And there is a living God who you can put your faith in.
That's right.
You can call out to. And if you call for backup,
hallelujah,
he's on his way.
He's on his way,
but
man.
you got to invite him in. You got to hit in and hit for backup.
You got to call for backup.
That's it, man.
Woo!
That is good stuff.
That is.
And these stories are in here, man. That's why I love you. Give the address, which rings true to the officers.
Right.
Hey, give the location, give the address. 1 Samuel 30, starting in verse 6. Go there yourself. Trust what we're saying, but go and verify it and read this. And I'm going to tell you, it's like a really good book. Once you start reading it, it's a page turner. You're going to keep reading. And there are stories in here of battle, of heroics, all these other things, but every single one of them are rooted and grounded in faith.
In faith. So I'm going to throw something else in here. Do we have time?
Barely.
I'm going to throw something else in here
right.
quick. We may not have time to talk about it all. Maybe we'll come back on the next one.
This is called a teaser.
It's a teaser.
All right.
So David, all of his men can't make this next phase of the journey.
Oh man,
they can't go into the next battle. They're wore out.
That's right.
Right. Your family, you're at home. Your unit, your second unit, your half unit. They may not be able to make it. They can't go in this battle. Maybe you're feeling the stress. Maybe it's in marriage and you can't include them because they might be part of the issue.
Right.
These other people with him, part of his men, they're so exhausted, they can't make the next battle. They can't go after them. They can't. They physically, emotionally, spiritually, they just can't do it.
That's right.
He says, we're going into battle. Those that can, they go with him. But when they win, they come back and also restore all of the other people who were already too exhausted to go. You have to realize that when you win your battle, it's not just for you. Now, some of the men argued with him and said, well, they didn't go fight. Well, we win. Well, we're the only, we should get ours and theirs too. He said, no, you're not doing that because you fought for your brother.
There you go.
You're fighting right now for your wife, for your children, for your husband, for your children. You're fighting for your, maybe you're a single adult officer and you don't have a family like that.
Hey, maybe you've been to hell and back here as an officer and you know what it was like, but you also know where you found the answer, or you stumbled upon this podcast.
Come on.
You go back and you pay that back, pay it forward to your fellow officer that's still standing on the line.
For you to win this next battle.
That's right.
For you to win this battle you're in right now, you're not just winning it for you, my friend. You're winning it for everybody that loves you. You're winning. This is no different than you facing the domestic violent person. It's no different than you facing the thief that's broke into somebody's house, a rapist. You have to see this thing that's speaking to you right now, telling you can't take anymore, you're done, you don't want to live like this anymore. You've got to see this as the worst enemy of your life, and you got to win this battle.
So
not just for you,
through.
but for everybody that loves you too. And you can start seeing your way through it.
That's right.
Yep.
And the next time when you're exhausted, your fellow officer grabs you by the hand, pulls you along, or they come back and help restore you.
And there's going to be another battle where there may be another officer like you that's in deep trouble.
That's the key.
And you're going to know what to do to help them.
So what you're saying is David took a remnant of the group, right?
That's
went and fought the battle, and then came back and revealed that to the rest of them. And that's exactly what we're talking about.
And everything was restored to them.
So this isn't games here. No. Take these episodes and share them with your fellow officers.
Come on.
Spouses.
Subscribe. Hit the
Take
bell.
Take these and share them with your officer or your family member or your military veteran who's suffering. You know, the statistics say that we lose 22 soldiers, veterans, a day to suicide. 22. Jesus, so there's a huge move of 22 to 0 to eradicate that number, and it means that you call your buddy. You do buddy checks, and you call them, and they might not be able to go into this next battle because, quite frankly, they're in a battle themselves.
They might be in a battle as well.
You go and fight it on their behalf, come back and help restore them. That's what this is about.
That's what it's about. Man.
That's good stuff.
Boom. Good stuff.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you too, man.
Love the profession. Love every law enforcement officer, and love that blue line and those that stand on it.
Well, this is a great
righteousness.
That's right. It's a great blessing, and let's continue to stand the line.
And love the families that also support their LEO. I mean, come on, the family members are in there too.
Absolutely.
And when they go after when these spirits go after the officer, they're not just after that officer. They're after the family. They're after that child. These demon spirits of murder, they want to make and affect an entire generation and a family and children and everybody involved.
Yeah.
So,
well, and if an officer's out there feeling like they got no hope, that's what you always say, which is you think that nobody else loves you. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Not a thing you can do about it. And so subscribe, hit the bell, give us a thumbs up. It helps us. We're trying to reach as many officers and families as possible. So we call you blessed today. My friend, as always, it's awesome. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Rick and I trust that you heard something that will help your life. And if you believe that it would help others, please make sure and share. Like and subscribe and hit that bell so that you can be notified when the next podcast is available. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.